There were others that just disappeared. I mean, they just didn't exist anymore. And there were others. I know one I remember was a certain political leader, and I followed him. I jumped forward in time, and all of a sudden, he realized that he was standing in the yard with his parents taking a picture of him in his cowboy suit and, in his cowboy get-up. And he was like 10 or 12 years old, somewhere around there, and was just immediately embedded in this 12-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid, somewhere around there. And I didn't know if that was the past or the future or what, but that these were the four things that I found on all of these cases. I never found a case where a person, lingered and became a ghost or something like that, but maybe there just weren't enough cases. I don't know. Anyway, what we found with some of the cases is that they would go from a modern day person that I was actually tasked to do into a time when, like, one was in the Roman Legion. And, it dawned on me from those sessions that instead of saying a past life and a future life, maybe we should say the last life and the next life, because the next life may not be in the future. The past life, the previous life may not have been in the past. And that maybe you go to wherever it is you're supposed to learn a lesson. Now, that's all supposition. But that there is no need, time-wise, for it to be a linear thing that goes in one direction only, that your consciousness or your soul or whatever you want to call it is not constrained to this scientific timeline we're in, and maybe when it frees from this body, it can go into another time that's past, future, even present. Maybe your next life or your upcoming life happens at the same time as your present life. Who knows? There's no way to prove any of this. I have, seen people who make money off of very believing people by reading their past lives and all that. And I've always wondered how much of a scam this is and how real it is. And I was thinking, man, the ideal scam would be to, read somebody's future life. By the time they find out whether you're right or wrong, they're out of the picture, so they couldn't sue you for it. And but I was raised Baptist, and you die and you go to heaven or hell. But from these sessions, I have realized that there is a possibility of reincarnation, and there is a possibility of oblivion, and that maybe all the different religions who believe their way is the only way, maybe all of them are right in what they believe, but that they're wrong and that their way is the only way. The soul, I think, is something that we can't really nail down. And but there's no reason why we can't reincarnate into the past if you're going to reincarnate.
Well, I seem to recall that Robert Monroe was of the view for a while there that maybe we're actually living all these lives at the same time, and it's just that we say something is the past or the future.
That could be,
yeah. And I'm not totally sure what he meant by that, but not having had all the experiences he had.
Yeah,
but,
well,
certainly...
I think what he meant was that your spirit is not constrained by the scientific definition of time. Maybe it's constrained by what time really is.
Mm-hmm. Could be. Okay, another question is that you often discuss how one of the great advantages of learning controlled remote viewing is that one's conscious and subconscious learn to work together and overcome their past grudges or disputes. Could you elaborate on this, or maybe give some examples of students or coworkers or something?
Yeah. The conscious and subconscious are, actually can have different personalities, and they can actually have grudges against each other. There are basically two dangerous times in learning controlled remote viewing. One that I've already spoken of is when you get sucked into somebody else's mind, and you don't want to do that. That's very dangerous. Another time that's not really dangerous, but can really be an annoyance, is when you're learning all these methods for your subconscious and conscious mind to communicate. Now, you've got to realize if those two can communicate, it was developed for spying on foreign nations and all, but your subconscious mind also knows where your car keys are. It also knows your phone number when you were 3 years old or younger. It also remembers every word of every conversation and so on. And so it also remembers every time you have really messed yourself over by some stupid thing that happened or a wrong decision or whatever. And the fact is that sometimes your subconscious tells you things, you don't listen, and you mess up. And the subconscious mind has feelings about this. I mean, it can carry a grudge. And of course, these grudges between the conscious and the subconscious get a lot of psychiatrists and psychotherapists new yachts every year, and some very fantastic homes and cars. They make a lot of money over the fact that a lot of times our conscious and subconscious just don't get along with each other. Well, in learning controlled remote viewing, when you're setting up this line of communications between your conscious and subconscious, many times some old grudge will come up. And, I've had people in class working along in a session, and you'll say, "What color is it?" And they'll say, "Oh, it's green," and just burst out in tears. And everybody around the room says, "Oh, what just happened?" When actually that particular shade of green or something has brought up some old memory that was an old grudge, and now then it has to be dealt with between your conscious and subconscious mind. This is one of the reasons I don't put out tapes and videos of how to remote view, because a wife from some farm in Peoria, Kansas, may be sitting there watching that. Some old grudge may come up within them. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't have anybody there to help them through it, and so they just go quietly bonkers there, and that should never happen. That's why I always tell people, if you're going to get remote viewing training, get it from a qualified, experienced trainer. Don't try to do this yourself, because there are some pitfalls. Anyway, as you learn the remote viewing and as you set up these lines of communication with your subconscious mind, these things are going to get worked out. And as they get worked out, it's going to be a whole lot faster, a whole lot better than 5 years on a psychiatrist's couch. And your life is going to get better. Now, many times, one of these problems will come up, and the only effect will be that your subconscious and your conscious just refuse to work together on a remote viewing session. And so your score, your accuracy goes to close to zero. And that happens very normally with a remote viewer in training. And as they gain more experience, they're going to go through these slumps. And I tell people, if you quit right there, whatever it is that's going on between your subconscious and your conscious is not going to get worked out because you quit. But if you keep on, you're going to have 10 to 25 really pig slop sessions, and then things will get worked out because you're making your conscious and subconscious continue to work together. And so these things get worked out, and all of a sudden your scores come back up, your accuracy comes back up, and your life gets better. Now, the fact is that on a conscious level, you may never realize what it was that was just solved within your psyche, and yet your life gets better. You become a happier person, a more peaceful person, and all that. The controlled remote viewing will change your life, and for the better. But these things happen, and your subconscious and your conscious have different personalities, and they hold grudges with each other, and you have to work those things out. So anyway, this is one of the things where the learning of remote viewing actually works to let you know why you do those things you don't want to do, but you wind up doing them anyway, why you don't do the things you want to do, but you wind up not doing them, because that's all in your subconscious mind. And as you learn to communicate with your own deeper self, you learn to know thyself. And as you learn to do that, your life's going to get better. So this is one of the things that we encourage, but we encourage that you do it with experienced help around to help you through those times. Was that elaboration enough?
I'd say that's pretty elaborate. Okay, moving on to the next topic.
I can give you examples of my own past where I've gone through these, but I don't think that's necessary.
No, probably not. So let's move on to the next topic of education, and here's Diane VG.
Hello, Lyn. It's Diane again.
Howdy.
My next question is sort of in line of what you were just talking about. It's if someone wanted to learn how to remote view and couldn't afford to take classes, are there any highly recommended resources you could provide for those so inclined to do so?
If they can't afford it, the one resource that I would highly recommend is a group called Hawaii Remote Viewers Group. They teach for free. They don't teach the remote viewing that was used by the military. They don't teach controlled remote viewing. And yet they do introduce you to all these different aspects of the scientific nature of remote viewing. They're not a bunch of psychics who just say, let things happen. They have a step-by-step process of their own. By the way, I keep making this distinction between psychics and controlled remote viewers. There are some really, really good psychics out there. There are also some really, really bad psychics, but there are some good ones. And sort of as an example, one of the people in our unit was into automatic writing. And so one day at lunch, she and I went into the director's office, and she was going to teach me how to do automatic writing. And so she gave me a pen and a paper, and I said, okay, what do I do? And she said, just let it happen. And I said, okay, what do I let happen? And she said, no, you're fighting it, just let it happen. And this kept on like this. She wouldn't tell me what to do. And so finally I stood up and I said, look, if it happens while I'm gone, write it down for me if you would, but I'm going to lunch. And I just walked out.